My name's Phil, and I run the cinematography curriculum here at TMU's School of Image Arts. Recently, I had the pleasure of inviting Paul into my class to run a cinematography workshop with my students, where I had each of them working in a crew role in either his camera, lighting, or grip departments, to really give them an understanding of what it's like to work with a DP of this caliber on a set like this.
I'm turning off house lights.
Angled slightly downward to emulate the sun, or is it?
Yeah,
Is
that's
the sun rising, like mid-rise?
yeah, that's not too bad. And maybe just pan it to the right a bit.
We panned, yeah.
Okay, and then maybe just roll it a little bit that way. Yeah, little. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
The shadows actually look like pretty good.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel too close.
No, it seems to be just at the right.
Inverse square lock.
So the one thing you'll probably notice to the eye is that it's very contrasty. So what generally happens is that when you have something like the hard sunshine, either bounce back or add a little bit of information so that it isn't so jet black. The contrast isn't so high. In the contemporary lights, they have all these various tubes and things which are brilliant because they don't need cables, and they're very small, so you can they're battery operated. You just sort of slide them into, you could put one there and put one there, and it's not a big deal. But we're on a tungsten set, so we have to add a little bit more cumbersome lighting into the situation to break up the contrast with a little bit of fill. So what we'll probably do is get some of our white bounce material, which Philip, I think, said is hiding behind
just around the corner there.
And I guess we'll get like a smaller lamp, whatever the small lamp we have, and bounce into that. I personally like to use the floor or low on the wall because there's a huge amount of the frame below the picture that you can use to hide things, and it's very often, like particularly when you're in widescreen, you have this whole region of the frame where you can put things that if you put them, you don't have space here because we have this big wide shot, but we do have space underneath, and you can use pieces of furniture to sort of hide stuff. Do we have some kind of small fixtures like a?
We have 150s, 300s if you want, small tungsten fixtures.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get those.
I mean, you could put like a little gather of it here.
All right, Paul, so talk us through what you're doing here with this diffusion. What's the goal?
Okay, well, so at the moment we have a very hard light coming through the window, which looks good and it does what the sun would probably do. It would be great to see what a bit of diffusion does to the situation. So I guess if someone could just sort of hold that up. So obviously diffusion completely gets rid of the very hard contrasty look of the direct sunshine. So what would be great is if we could go to the cart and maybe find a diffusion that's a much lighter diffusion than that one. And also, do we have some small white bounce somewhere? Ah, great. And Philip, did you get one of those 150s or 300s?
Yeah, they're ready to go right there.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I'll take one of those. And we should get this plugged in.
Can I have you just grab an extension cord and run power to that distro box right back there? Yeah.
The light coming from the window is very powerful and very contrasty. So the mission is to bring back some information on the dark side of the actors to fill in. And it's really a function of putting in a small light. So basically, on these older lights, there's these things called scrims.
A bit larger,
brilliant.
but there you go. So explain to the class what a scrim is, because they're not quite used to them in the world of dimmers.
Yeah, well, it's these largely have been replaced by nowadays lights can be dimmed to sort of any level. Like you're often on a set at 0.5 of 100%. You're dimming lights down to because you need so little light. The digital world is more about taking light away than adding light. So here we're in a sort of hybrid world of where we're sort of building a scene with light, but as you can see, there's too much fill light. The idea is to add scrims to knock the light down. So this is a red scrim, so that's equal to 1 stop on the camera, and that's 2 stops, 3 stops. So here you can sort of see by eye that it's too much light, so we want to knock it down. So this is what a single stop worth. Great. Yeah, that's good. So you can see here, he's being hit by the direct light, which is going through diffusion through the window, and then we've filled in a little more from the, and maybe just pan with the wider lens, just pan it right a little bit.
So we're reading as a 5.6 on key and then a 2.5 on fill.
Yeah. Let me just frame out the light. That's on the floor. Yeah, so these are, again, light levels which are quite high because we're again, not working with digital lights, which are definitely work at much lower levels. But so here, we reduced the bounce light by 1 stop with the scrim. So let's see what it looks like if I add 2 stops.
And scrims will come in different strengths, so each time you're putting them on, you're not changing the quality of the light at all, you're not making it softer, you're not diffusing it in any way, you're just taking down level of exposure, and it looks like the screen door that you have on your balcony window. It's just a mesh material that removes a certain amount of light every time it comes through.
And speaking of screen door, funnily enough, on the set window was a mosquito net, which acts exactly like a scrim. So in this situation, it wouldn't really change much of the quality of the light. It would just frustrate you because it's stealing some of the light, because it's like I put effectively one of these on the glass. So so I hit it around the corner so that it doesn't torment us. The enemy to all cinematography is white walls, because they generally end up brighter than the actors. You want the actor to be the brightest thing in the shot, so that your eye is drawn to them and you're watching what they do. So basically, our actor in the foreground, so we've put a little bit of fill on his face, but it's probably not, it's plenty, like there's not too much. And it seems to be natural with what's coming through the window. And I guess, we're saying this is in the morning time, when the sun is lower in the sky. The shadows are sort of beside you rather than below you. The one thing that's really crucial to note is that there has to be a certain flexibility in how you've lit it to allow the camera to have the ability to move in the space, and also to be careful that you haven't created a situation where when you do move the camera, you've lit the camera, so you see a big shadow of the camera on the wall or on the actor. The boom person is your friend, and you try to also take them into consideration for, where can they sneak in their microphone without having a big shadow. So sometimes you put in a special flag for them so that they can hide their shadow. So I guess for sake of argument, this is our day scene. So now I think what we can do is transition into an evening situation.
Sure. Well, do we actually want to roll for a moment on this?
Sure.
It's the worst screen imaginable. Don't light by eye off of it.
The assumption is that it's
calibrated,
exactly.
The DIT has taken a look at it, made sure all's good.
And it's all copacetic and all that kind of stuff.
That screen is substantially darker. That's the one thing I've come to learn over time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's imagine
Exactly,
that it is as it should be, and
Perfect.
And it's true though that if you go by this and compare it to that, it's quite a world of difference. If you want to roll a bit on the two, and that tense up. This is your big moment, and.
All right, so roll A cam, B cam. All right. And actors kind of give a look to each other.
So let's say you would call this a master shot. Inevitably, on a film set,
And we can cut there?
the director then wants to cover this. So just for the directors in the crowd, what do you imagine? Where would the camera go from here to cover this dialogue? Any takers on that?
Perhaps a close-up on the different characters so you get options for reverses. There's a hand over there.
Yeah.
Probably push in a little more frontal on his face and then distance her maybe out of focus in the background.
Right. So basically, you're kind of on him. See, there's the other thing. There's this thing called the axis. There's a lot of debate one way or the other. Do you break the rule of crossing the axis or not? But fundamentally, we've been doing everything on that side of this line. So in theory, if we're doing closer coverage, we would respect that. But that being said, there's an interesting shot here. So sometimes you might choose as a director to break that rule and flip over to the other side of the axis.
You know what? Let's set up for maybe two other shots within the scene too, so we can see the considerations for lighting for a different shot within the same scene as well.
So I guess go a little bit this way. So he's visible, like to the camera right. So yeah, that way. Whoa, hold it there. Okay, and maybe split the difference a little bit. Okay, good. And then you could probably go in, straight in. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, okay, try that. Yeah. And maybe drive in a little bit closer. So that you kind of fill the frame with his face. Yeah, yeah, there. And then maybe focus on the foreground. Yeah, exactly. And careful not to put him too close to the edge, but yeah. So you can see on the screen that this might be an interesting coverage. And with the other camera, can we switch lenses?
What focal length would you like?
Do we have like 100?
We might have a 135.
Okay. So why don't we come over here? Well, yeah, I'll let you change the.
Yeah, I'll do the same for if you don't need this, I can take that back.
Maybe I'll.
This is a nice.
Try to snug up as much as possible to the other camera.
Watch, I'll
Oh, okay, and then maybe as left as you dare. Okay, so here we have the situation where we have the two cameras with we switch to longer lens, and we're getting tighter coverage of him on the correct axis, and on her with the longer lens. So basically, you could definitely cut between the looser shots we just did and these shots for coverage. And in fact, I guess we could do another roll just for fun.
How about we roll this, and then what do you think about bringing some diffusion in for the close-up?
Do you have any light, very light, like
we do.
Hampshire type thing?
I think so.
Go ahead, yeah. Okay, and this is your big moment. The camera's rolling. Don't be anxious.
So Hampshire's on its way. What are your considerations when choosing diffusion?
Well, the thing is, diffusion, it's mainly to soften the light and to flatter the face. The thing is, these people have young, beautiful complexions that don't really need any flattering, but it's a good thing to check it out. One other thing to notice is that let me explore this for a second. This is a perfect opportunity. Okay, why don't you throw a look towards her? Where you can throw focus back on her, and then looking back out again. And careful, you're just leaning a little bit too far out. Yeah. Okay. Great. Better give this back to you. You're the expert. Now, so just for we've cut, right? Yeah. So why don't we just handhold that diffusion just in and just see what. So this is a very light diffusion called Hampshire, and when you're this close, it definitely does some nice things to the skin. It's the light is less harsh. At the moment, we're sort of double diffuse from what we have outside and inside. So I don't know, maybe we could roll a few seconds of that just for comparative purposes. Okay. Okay, great. And cut. Let's say that this was getting the coverage from this side. So where would the camera need to go to do the reverse coverage of this situation, do you think? So where would the camera be?
I was thinking it'd be kind of like near the lamp. Or does that sound incorrect?
That is half right, but if you're respecting this axis, this would be crossing the axis. So for example, at the moment, she's looking left at him, so he should be looking right. So in theory, the camera should be here, looking back. Now, obviously, we're not going to do that because we'd have to rebuild the entire set. So this scene was never meant to have a reverse, but that would be the reverse if we did it. With Philip's permission, we'll regurgitate all of this to a sort of nice evening situation. Okay.
You actually moved quite quickly on this, so we could do 3 looks if we wanted to.
Okay.
So if you want to put in like something that's a bit different than we planned.
Yeah, well, the one thing that this actually brings up a really good situation that you don't always encounter, and that is when you're shooting an evening scene, there's actually 2 types of evening scene. One is evening, which is with the lights on, so you have practicals, and it's sort of a mixture. The window is no longer a source, like the sun doesn't shine in. It's dark outside. Maybe there's street lights or moonlight or whatever. And the other evening is middle of the night, and middle of the night is when the lights are off. And at that point, you're sort of back to something outside the window is lighting the situation, which might be the street light outside, or the moon, or some kind of a source that is external to the room. So why don't we? Our next thing will be evening with practicals, and then we'll discover some kind of middle of the night look.
And one thing I want to highlight just before we move on for that, right now, so we have our key light coming from outside. The only fill that we have is this light here. You get a bit of ambience coming in from the wall. So our ratio is just between the outside light as our key and then our inside light as our fill light. As we move on to now this night setup where we're going to have practicals, we're going to be motivating off those practicals, and then the ratio is going to change from being predominantly something outside, I'd imagine, to be more off the lights.
Yeah, so exactly, and the question is, are the practicals enough to do the lighting, or do we have to off camera invent a practical that is, or there's more light,
augmenting whatever look that might be given.
Yeah, like you're kind of for the purposes of storytelling, you're adding light into the situation.
So let's pull the dollies back. We'll give some space for the lighting team to get in here. And focally, what do you want to start on for this scene?
I guess we could go. Why don't we go to the 50 mil on one? In fact, what is this?
It's 85 and 135 at the moment.
Yeah. So why don't we? Yeah. So why don't we do we'll exchange the 50 mil on.
So 50 on A,
yeah.
And then 85 on B. You're
yeah,
still good?
leave
Perfect.
Yeah.
So what were you thinking for the key and like the evening look? Like, is it going to be that lamp turning on and then?
Yeah, we should turn the two practicals. If there's any other practicals, would be great. We'll kill the 5K, and he can come and sit. I guess he's sort of benefiting from this lamp as well. So maybe about here.
So do we have a sense of frame? Like, are both lamps going to be like?
Yeah, I'm going to try to find a spot where they're both. I mean, I think realistically, that one's going to be the most important one. So that's good. Yeah. So what? Forgive me, I forgot your name. Matt, have a seat in that chair, and let's kill the. Turn on the practicals. Kill the 5K. Yeah. And comfy. Yeah. Yeah.
And what strength of, I don't think these are wired in yet, what strength of bulb do you want?
I guess like 60 watt. If
60
you had.
watt? Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is a bit lower than that. Okay, so G&E, let's get power running to the practicals on the set. I'll get bulbs.
And then we're going to strike the 5K once we have these set some values in.
What's actually happening in this scene?
Okay, well,
Narratively.
they're having an evening conversation, and basically she remains in the bed. He's going to be in the chair, and I guess we could take the 50 mil camera and maybe bring it over here.
The A-cam?
Yeah.
Okay. Does it have a 50 on it?
I think so.
Here we've got a big container of practical bulbs, and you're going to want this on your set. You're going to have all different intensities. So some of these are marked as like we got a 60 watt here. Other of these might be unfrosted, so you have a bare bulb. This will create a much harder light, but you get more output versus this that's a bit more diffused, softer overall. And then you'll have different sizes that'll just create, like with this, with the filaments inside, it will be a bit warmer sort of look. And so the goal here is that you want to get a certain level of light coming out of the practical that, you know, you're probably not lighting your character with it. You're probably not lighting your scene with just one of these. So it's something that's not clipping on camera, and then you can go ahead and have something else that's going to give the actual level that's lighting your character.
Just it looks quite ominous.
The fixture of it, or like?
Yeah, like.
Oh my god! Yeah, dude, I didn't look at that.
I got bulbs for you though.
So 60 watt unfrosted. Oh, no.
60 watt unfrosted
Okay, so let's
is.
just go a little.
And then maybe I'll keep
I'm just trying to line them up a bit more.
It's probably that.
So do we have 2 of them? Just
Maybe.
Per lamp?
I will tell you good luck.
Okay, I
Have fun reading through those.
Thank you, Isaac.
Yeah, that's kind of good.
We need both of them in the frame, right? That's the
Yeah, so I guess maybe travel a bit more. Exactly, like we'd justify something coming from the outside and then maybe cool it down.
Yeah, so probably like gel that one up with like gels or...
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you can't change
Yeah,
color,
unlike
yeah.
the modern
like
light.
the LEDs.
Yeah, where you have sort of infinite control. And probably for the night one, we'll take the diffusion away, so it's like a harder light.
Harder light?
But the evening could also be like, a street light.
Yeah.
I can't grab it from the back when it will fall, so you always want to transport it like that.
It looks like this lighting fixture is broken.
Okay. Hey! Let there be light.
So now we can kill the 5K
Do you think we need to push in?
frame.
Okay.
Okay.
There's no slate.
Paul, what I'm actually going to do for a second is just kill this light so everyone can see what it looks like. No fill, no nothing. Okay, so everyone give me your attention here for a sec. Oh yeah, keep coming, keep coming. If we look at our scene right now, this is what we have with just 2 60-watt practical bulbs. So what we can see is we're working with an Alexa here. We're not clipping on the walls, but we're definitely getting a lot of highlight on the walls. So what we would want to do is actually expose for the practicals first. So that's probably going to mean, to Paul's preference, stopping down on the lens, lowering the aperture so that we can get the amount of light we want on the walls. And so you could put these on a hand squeezer, like a dimmer, something like that, to bring them down. But the goal essentially is going to be exposing for these lights, and then based off the shape that Paul wants and how we want to set the rest of our scene, we're going to bring in the other fixture right here, which is a 2x2 Kino LED panel, to augment the look that we'd be getting, for example, from this one light there. So Paul, do you want to talk us through the process of this fixture right here?
Well, the thing is that, these practicals, which are great, but we're sort of wide open at this point. So we're going to help them out a bit with the Celeb light, give more detail on their face, as if coming from the practical. He will get a little bit more, and she will get a little bit more. Again, in the modern world where you have tubes that are not needing cables, these are things that you could like hide one here, so neither camera would see it, but she would be getting the benefit of that.
And when we're talking tubes, we're talking about Titan tubes, Asteras, apertures, quasars, things like that. Just self-batteried light fixtures that you can often have full RGB control, or at the very least, it's something bicolor. So when we say bicolor, that would be a light range from maybe a bit warmer than tungsten, so like 2000 Kelvin, all the way up to a bit cooler than daylight, so maybe 7000. Something like an Astera, since it has full RGB in it, it gives you the ability to create colors outside of that range. So you could go to like 20,000 Kelvin, for example. Or you could go for super saturated red. But the goal is just to have something that's very compact, easy to place in the set. So Paul just placed a bounce here.
Yeah, we're going to steal this little bounce. That was very handy. I'm very big at reusing lights that are already on your set. Can someone sort of unleash me? Here. Yeah, so we're going to want to take this over here.
So when you're working at low light levels like we are here, like we're just using 60-watt bulbs. Think about before we were using a 5K, a 5,000-watt light as the key. So when you're working at a lower light level, your ratio, you still want to have separation in it. So when we're talking ratio, as usual, we're talking about key light to fill light to practicals. So before we had no practicals, so it was just the key to fill. And so in this scenario, even though we're using much lower levels of light, we're still trying to build a ratio. We're still trying to make sure that you have a defined shape in your scene, because the worst thing you can possibly do is have a scene that is very dark with no shape to it, no contrast, because then everything looks like mush. If anyone watched Game of Thrones, you know the famous last season night battle scene that on everyone's television looked like gray nothingness. Because in that scene, if you're starting at something that is, properly exposed but doesn't have much ratio, and then you just make it darker, compression artifacts, everything's going to come in and you're just not going to see anything. So the goal of a dark scene, if you are creating one, is to have that difference of a bit of shape, a bit of light, a bit of dark. And the same things apply. So when we're talking in like a very high key scene where we might have a 1-to-1 ratio, 1-to-2 ratio, 1-to-4 ratio, something like that, where it's a difference of 1 stop, 2 stop, we can still have that same light ratio existing when we're using lower light levels. So in that scenario, if we wanted a 1-stop difference, for example, from key light to fill light, that would be, hypothetically, having a 60-watt bulb and a 30-watt bulb. Because when you're using half the amount of light, that's 1 stop. So even though we're doing like 60 and 30, it would be the same thing as having a 5K and a 2.5K. It's the same ratio, just lower light level. And because we have, like right now we're shooting at 800 EI, 800 ISO, you have a lot of sensitivity going into the camera, so we don't need to worry so much about having that really high key.
And maybe just pull your hair back a little. Yeah. So here we're kind of in a good place. Obviously the practical lights are kind of the main thing, but as you saw when only they were on, their faces were quite deep. Now here's a perfect example of the position of this light is so far over that when her hair drapes in front of her face, it creates these ghoulish shadows. So a little bit of swiping them behind the ear is a really good thing. And so the Celeb goes a long way to doing basically helping both of them. It's wrapping the light around a bit more. That's naturally coming from that practical, but it also fully lights him, but it appears as if it is the light coming from that practical over on the left. Managed to hide one behind his chair for the bounce, which does a similar job as this for the other side of her face, as if coming from that practical. Now, this is, of course, a classic situation where as soon as you want to move the camera, the hiding of that lamp becomes more and more difficult. So I've gambled that the director wants to do a very static kind of situation, and I can keep that hidden. There's infinite places within the frame where you can hide a light, and very often that's very useful. You often see on a set lamps arrive and they're all on stands and they're all about this height, and I've never understood that situation because there's very few light sources in a room that are at that height. So I very often hide things on the ground or put them on the ground, even if they don't have to be hidden. Another thing that's very common now is, of course, old sets would be open on the top, leaving you all sorts of room to light from above. But again, what place do you go where light comes from above? It's very rare. So one of the hallmarks of a modern set is it's fully closed in, like a location, and in a way that leads to a more realistic feel because lights come from the window or from the other room or from practicals, which you didn't have to rely on as much before, and now they're like the main lights of the set. This would be a little bit nicer if the tone of the wall was darker. When you're in the grade, you can do many things to tame the hot wall and enhance the people in front of the wall. There comes a point where you have so little time on set to complete the picture, and you relegate a number of things to do in the grade, because you say, well, yes, we could spend another 20 minutes with a net and the grips hanging something, but that's 20 minutes less of of acting time for the director, and getting the extra take they want. So there's a delicate balance where the cinematographer has to sort of weigh what's making the best picture with what's the most valuable thing, which is shooting time. You know, ideally you get the most interesting picture, the most compelling, the most successful, but it is, after all, a drama with actors, and that's kind of why you're there. So you have to sort of guard where is the point at which you stop and then start shooting. And that's your value in the industry is often comes down to that, is how quick can you be. And quick doesn't necessarily mean good. If it looks great and you're quick, then that's the best scenario.
Keep coming back.
Yeah. So you have to sort of develop that language as best you can. So should we roll a little on the practical lit evening conversation? This is a heart-to-heart. This couple they've got a lot of issues that they've gone from dawn to dusk. We're trying to figure it out.
All right, and now action.
This actually is an interesting point that this particular lighting setup illustrates. The human face, you can light it in infinite number of ways, but it's not necessarily flattering to the actor. And so this is a case where the lighting is quite far from the center, and so it's quite harsh on particularly on her. The rule of thumb is the more the light is front on, the more flattering it is, because it fills in all the shadows, and the complexion is flattered. And a great classic example of that is the Marlene Dietrich light. If you see any of her great von Sternberg films, she's always lit by 45 degrees, a hard light right here, and she looks gorgeous. And the reason she looks gorgeous is because she's lit gorgeously, and she is gorgeous. But that light can be totally without diffusion, totally hard and cruel, but because it's coming straight in on a 45-degree angle, she looks beautiful. So this would not be Marlene Dietrich light, because there's a light over there, there's a light over there. You would really need a light like right here. The difficulty with that is not very realistic light, and it's a very kind of old-fashioned way of lighting a person. But that's your debate as a cinematographer. What do you do? What are you trying to accomplish?
Classic Hollywood versus something that's more naturalistic.
Yeah,
a light space, not face.
Exactly,
sort of
and in fact, in the old studio system, she would be lit beautifully here. Then she would walk over here and
butterfly lighting right there.
Have another one exactly set in the grid, waiting for her. And then she walks over here. There's another one for every position. There's a lamp, and it's been and in fact, in those days. Stars like Marlene Dietrich would have her own cinematographer. I think it was Joseph Walker or someone who would shoot all her films, and because she knew she would look amazing in the right hands. And so she takes with her her makeup people, her cinematographer, her director, and are able to reproduce this magical persona from film to film.
And there's a flip side to that as well. It meant that actors knew they had to hit their marks then. It's not now where they can kind of wander around and do whatever and they'll be lit kind of okay. It's like, it's 1940 or whatever it is. It's like, if you do not land right here, you will not be lit, you will not be in focus. If you're over here, too bad. If you're over here, too bad. It's like actors knew that they had to hit their marks, and that's why you'd have so many little T's dotted around the set, because every single one was a mark that they would have to hit. Now, we're about to hit 11 a.m., so if we want, we can quickly switch to our second team. Just rotate our crew over, and then we'll move on to what we're doing right after.
Okay.
Right before we do that, I know you're a huge fan of Kino Celebs. Do you want to talk through why you use that as a tool why it's so practical?
Yeah, well, I mean, these lights, I generally use the one that's half the size, but we're now stepping into the modern world of lighting. And what's incredible about this, aside from the fact that you can change its color and you can dim it, and you have these amazing honeycomb grids that focus the light so that it's great there and there's nothing here. And sometimes what you do is you put 2 honeycombs so you even focus it more. But arguably, it's a soft light, but it's a soft light that you can project across the set. And that's a very unusual thing. Like, that may not sound like much, but you could never do with that light what you could do with this light. So it's an amazing tool. And I remember the first time I encountered them, I was shooting a TV show, and the gaffer who knew these lights kept very politely always putting one just, on set. It was just sitting on the floor there, like, what the hell is that thing? You keep tripping on it. And he was trying to say, try the new light, just give it a go. And one day I did, and then I never stopped. So with cinematography, you use so many tools that you are used to and have that has worked in the past, and that you have to solve be ready in 20 minutes. So you put in place the things that you know. So to add new things into that is often it's a process, because you have to. It's like acquiring a new taste. You resist it. It doesn't fit in your system, in your way of doing things. It's like using a new word, and it doesn't come trippingly off your tongue. But definitely you discover that there are now very different lights that do very different things that you can't do without. And in fact, like struggling there with that little 300, which used to be a very favorite light, it now never comes off the truck, and in fact in the future won't be on the truck, because it's a pain in the ass with the doors and the scrims, and it's the wrong size scrim, and hiding it, and it's hot, it burns your fingertips, while Celeb will never burn your fingertip. So there are things that it's funny when modern filmmakers go on a tungsten set and feel how hot it is. That's something that's bizarre. That when Marlene Dietrich was going from light to light, each one of those lamps was a little furnace, and so the cumulative effect in a studio of all those hot lights, it made it unbearable. I think the famous example is The Wizard of Oz, where they lit it with brute arcs because they shot in Technicolor, which had a ISO of 8. We're dealing with 800. But can you imagine that poor cowardly lion in his lion suit with 300 brute arcs glowing all at the same time in the studio? The heat in that place must have been excruciating. So that's definitely a thing of the past that has profoundly changed. Okay, so why don't we do our last setup?
Well, here, let's just swap crew first before we do that.
Oh.
So rotation 2, your names are up on the chart there, so swap out camera teams, lighting teams, please.
Okay, so let's kill the practicals. And you know what, let's pull the grids off of these. Oh, it's not moving. No, keep the grid and maybe dim it to half of that.
Suggested it before, but did you want to see if we could pull the bed off the wall a little bit?
Well, then they have nothing to lean against, and yeah. Like to be able to deal with the wall, we'd have to be 5 feet from it. And
Do you want these lights cooler?
No, that's pretty good. Well, now the top chop. Why don't you start lowering? Okay, hold it there, and then maybe these 2 lamps can go up. Are you sort of at the limit of your cable?
Yeah, kind of, a little bit. Or I can plug onto a space.
Yeah, why don't we get in? Okay, yeah. So basically, you're just trying to Yeah, get this chair in the foreground, like that.
All right, just cover the chair.
Yeah, so
All right. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna.
it's right about here. Cooled down the light that's coming in from the outside. We've changed the fixture so it's a slightly different quality. It's a debate whether is it moonlight or is it street light, but definitely it's a very different atmosphere than we had with the practical lights and the sunlight that we had earlier. And we're trying to negotiate some shadow play given that it's a very bright room. And after the flag struggle is complete, we'll hopefully got a kind of good. This flag is trying to. This was very distracting. It had this incredibly bright white chair in the middle of the shot, so we're sort of knocking that down. So what we have here is the cool evening look. We're using the same window, different source. We probably could spend a little more time on the flagging, but generally speaking, that's pretty good. And we're doing something that's not very nice to the focus puller. We're wide open. Generally, you try not to be wide open because it's very, it complicates the degree of difficulty for focusing, particularly when you're on a longer lens. Also to note, focus pulling is the other thing that's experienced a huge revolution in this digital age because now focus pullers have these very high quality monitors that their eyes are constantly on, and they're kind of they don't really make measurements anymore. They do it all off the monitor. But as you may or may not recall, in the olden days, the focus puller would take measurements with a tape measure on the set, which was the distance between the focal plane of the camera and the actors, and write that all on a disc that was on the side of the camera. And literally, as they went through the scene, they watched the actors and where the camera went, and they calculated. They mentally made the calculation. Okay, he's at 5 feet. Okay, now at 10 feet 2, and literally changed the focus on the camera. And there was nothing to refer to other than what you saw with your eyeball. And the focus puller never slept because they never knew until the next day when you saw the dailies, did I do it? Yeah. So it's a little bit different job at present day.
Fair enough. Well, shall we get into it then? So very much moonlight look that we have here. And then shot-wise, you're happy with what you have right now for the two cameras?
Yeah. In fact, yeah, we could roll a bit.
All right. So let's roll both cameras. And start fighting now.
Oh, and watch.
Yeah, just watch your shadows. And look to each other. And then both look at the light at the window there. Good with that?
Great.
All right, let's cut.
You can cover any which way. I mean, in some cases, it might be just closer straight on. Obviously, that's good for lighting. But then it might be, since they are probably playing the scene out into the space, it might be here and the equivalent thing on that side. So the trick is, this is fairly easy to do, and you could throw in some diffusion to soften it up. The challenge is this, because obviously here the camera is right in the light. So at that point, you have some choices to make as a cinematographer. There's an argument that if you would switch the rim light to there coming this way, it is a massive cheat, but it could work. It's one of those things. There's a lot of cheating going on when you're lighting a scene, and sometimes the reverse angle is doing something that's absolutely disobeys what was established in the wide shot. but the argument is it looks good or it works. Other ways of dealing with this is that you really flatten this with diffusion and you hide the camera shadow. And if the camera is still, you probably won't see the shadow. But it's definitely something that you try to anticipate while you're still working on the wide shot.
So do we want to move a camera in?
Yeah.
All that said.
Oh, and actually one other thing, the very efficient director will say, well, why can't we shoot both at the same time?
Cross coverage.
And that's very nice for the producer, but it's terrible for the cinematographer because the solution where things look good this way don't necessarily look good that way, or what allows this shot to be lit doesn't work for this way. You know, so you, with great care, you agree to cross covering because you may paint yourself into a terrible corner. So why don't we say, so we'll bring this camera.
And at that point, Paul, would your preference to be backlight if you have to do the 2-camera cross coverage?
Yeah, there's certain circumstances that are more good for dealing with that. Like if you're like on a cloudy day outside, you can do all sorts of crazy things.
I just don't want to block you.
Oh, okay. Here, let me just get rid of this thing. Here, I'll hand that to you. Yep. Yeah. So why don't we? Yeah, come a little deeper. And then why don't we put the 50 mil? Is that on the other? Yeah. So we're going to steal your lens.
Right here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so sort of snug next to the other camera. So let's say, for sake of argument, this is our coverage size. So I guess we should roll a little bit.
Let's do it. All right, cameras roll. Thank you. And action, talent.
And maybe just do a little with the, yeah. And I guess cut. And you know what? Let's put the 135 on that camera just to see if we can get a nice close-up of him.
All right, everyone, this will be our last setup, and then we'll start taking things down.
So they're just flopping a lens.
Awesome. We're on what now, 135?
135.
35.
To
okay.
sort of get a little close-up on him.
Nice.
So why don't we frame up with the new lens on him? Yeah. So maybe we'll roll a bit on that camera just for the close-up. And cut. Shooting in the middle of the night, you can do different things. The color could be neutral. You could play it as the mercury vapor of the street lamp. Another interesting thing would be to do it all with passing headlights. And the characters would occasionally go into total darkness, and then they're lit up again because the light passes. The job of the cinematographer is to discover what is the most interesting way to light a situation.
Well, I think that's, if you want to say the magic words.
That's a wrap. Thank you.